And we're live. Good evening.
Good evening.
How you doing?
Much better since you got here.
Thanks. Brother Tyler, invite our guests into the lodge and leave the door open for this week
Yeah. For one more week.
so that others may join us. Welcome to another episode of Follow Me. Our 1 week away from, less than a week now. We're getting to go back.
Yeah. Well, what's tonight's episode brought to you by?
Tonight's episode is brought to you by Dirty Laundry. Stop hanging it out there for others to see.
I'm worst Brother Wiley Forrester. This is worst Brother Will Moore. And that's a pretty good.
Is that powerful?
Yeah, it goes right to the point. As we all know, over the last 5 days, the Grand Master here in Georgia put out his Edict number 1 along with his rulings 4, 5, and 6 to allow us to go back and attend lodge. Now, been a lot of confusion from what I've seen, considering the first time ever in Masonry, I turned off my telephone on Friday because I was just tired of hearing it. Just to tell you the truth, just point blank and simple. It's either feast or famine at this point. First of all, Will, you know as well as I do, we all want to go back to lodge, but there's so many out there that don't quite understand what the difference between an edict and a ruling is, and what its premise is, and what its purpose is. And tonight we're going to try to talk about that a little bit.
Well, and we're also going to give our opinions on why some of these things were put out. We've not talked to the Grand Master about it, but just from a Georgia standpoint, we want to talk about some of those things that were put out and why we feel they were put out.
And there's several lodges, grand jurisdictions around the country that are starting to put out. They're so eerily similar to what Grandmaster Garmin did, and I know that Texas did something that's, it's almost verbatim for what we have here in Georgia. In addition to, Virginia put theirs out today.
Yep.
They're not going back to lodge till July 1. And they have a lot of the same in place things. And all the grand jurisdictions that I see, and when their edicts come out, or their rulings, or whatever they call it, it's similar. Everything's the same. The CDC guidelines don't change from state to state.
Right, and that's where a lot of these are coming from. A lot of them are coming from what the CDC put out.
Correct.
Now, so first, explain to me what an edict is.
So, in our Masonic code, it tells us exactly. The code says that the Masonic code and the official approved supplement thereto constitute the approved body of laws effective in a grand jurisdiction. In this grand jurisdiction, it should be consulted and relied upon. If any other manual book may differ from Masonic code, the code and the must and does control. The code repeals all enactments of edicts of the Grand Lodge at variance with its provisions or not contained herein. So, the Grand Master from time to time, under a lot of counsel.
Oh yeah, he doesn't do it in a nutshell.
A lot of counsel. He has to determine the things that might deem appropriate that come up.
Mm-hmm.
So he either issues it in a ruling or an edict. An edict in itself is, say for instance, what we have going on now. The edict that come out simply stated that the Grand Master needs to have, he needs to be able to have the authority to make the decisions he's been able to make without having to issue these edicts and whatever. Meaning, there is no precedent for what we're under right now as far as the pandemic goes. So, at Grand Lodge, the edict will come up before the floor, and then the body would vote on that edict, whether it becomes law or not, and it would become part of permanent law. So with our rulings, the rulings usually pass on once we get a new Grand Master. In a nutshell, that's it in a nutshell. But an edict would apply
So an edict is something he puts out that can be made into a law.
Right, and the only way that goes is if it's, the edict would go into law as if it was enacted on by the membership at the grand session.
Okay, so it's brought up for a vote at grand session.
Right.
Okay. So how does a ruling play into that?
Well, the ruling. Well, let's back up and talk about the edict. The edict is a pronouncement of Masonic law by the Grand Master. It's like a subordinate lodge and its worshipful master. The Grand Master is Grand Lodge when when we're not meeting and we're not convened. Okay. At the annual communications, the members of Grand Lodge, which that entails past masters and current sitting masters, may choose to enact the edict and make it part of permanent law.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, the Grand Master's pronouncing this needs to be a change, and these are the why. He's done a very good job at explaining the why. I think that any person who has any doubts about where his heart is and why the decisions have to be made, they're sadly mistaken. If they think anything other than he has the benefit of the fraternity in his heart.
Well, we've talked about this before. In a lodge, you may have 50 to 200 members you have to think about as worshipful master. He's got 30,000 plus across the state he has to think about. So,
and that's correct. And we have to be mindful of those things. And the thing I think is the big situation that I think we have going on right now in our particular state is brethren thought we were just going to be able to just go back to lodge and things go back to being status quo and how things were. That's not how it works. There were things in there about the face mask and making sure that we wear face masks, but it was a suggestion that you should and not shall. If it had been shall, then that means you would have had to wear a face mask in every meeting, which for the older members is not a bad thing. And out of respect for others, it's probably not a bad thing either.
Right. But you're not required to, but it's highly suggested.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that's the way I read what was written in there, because it didn't have the words shall.
Or will.
Or must.
Shall, will, and must. And from government contracting that I did for a lot of years, in government contracts, those were the three words you keyed on. Shall, will, and must.
And if I was, when I first opened this up and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, well, here's his edict. I understand the premise of the edict, meaning we have to give the Grand Master authority to be able to do these things. Mm-hmm. This is something that Grand Lodge is not in session. He is the Grand Lodge when not in session. Right. So we have to be able to do that. All right, so we got these rulings. In order for us to go back and attend lodge, we had the separate rulings. He said it for district conventions as well as our subordinate lodges. So with the rulings, a ruling is just go ahead.
Says a ruling would only remain in effect for the term.
Right, until Grand Lodge. Yeah, when Grand Master goes out of order out of office, then it would just die on the vine.
So unlike an edict that can be voted into law, a ruling just goes dead when the new Grand Master is.
Yeah, it's temporary.
Right.
Just like I don't think that brethren understand when the Grand Master makes a ruling, there was something that incited that ruling. It wasn't something that he just, I'm going to make a ruling on this today. I just feel like it. A lot of times during our regular year when things are not at epidemic and pandemic state, the Grand Master is asked to make rulings on many things, where it would be balloting or someone did something irregular and it not being correct, or someone did things that was not according to Masonic law. And when Masonic law comes into question, you ask the Grand Master for a ruling. Right. So, and the Grand Master has plenty of counsel. And not to say this Grand Master, he can make these decisions well enough on his own.
I don't think we've had a Grand Master that doesn't do them without counsel.
Correct. And it's just good business.
Yeah.
You were all taught as Masons to abide your time and patience. Well, if you're having to make a ruling on something, do you think you need a little time and patience? I mean, and that's just throwing that out there in a nutshell. You know,
So if you have an edict which can be turned into a law, if it gets voted down on the floor, it doesn't become a law and it dies at the end of the. I don't mean to use the word die, but it becomes in. It's not in effect when the new Grand Master comes into office.
right, it dies on the vine.
Right.
I mean, that's
Same
the
way-
best way to put
And
it.
a ruling can never be brought into Masonic code, from what I understand.
From what I understand as well. Now, we could be wrong. If someone wrote it in proper form, you know, something.
Well, but
I don't know.
But this is a ruling by the Grand Master.
Correct.
That would have to be a
No,
law
it wasn't
change.
trying to enact and change
Right,
Masonic
right.
law. But Masonic law is going to supersede everything. You know what I'm saying? So, with that said, you know, edicts are serious business.
Oh yeah.
And Grandmaster should never issue one without there being a matter of grave importance to the craft.
And he also has to ensure with his team, because I mean it's a team
Correct.
that none of this violates Masonic code. Because if his ruling or edict violates Masonic code, what you read at the beginning, the Masonic code would be the rule.
Right, because you can't issue, the Grandmaster can't issue an edict that would contradict or be, you know, coincide with, you know, or go against what's currently in our code. For in plain speak, in Wiley speak, that's he can't use $10 words. He can't get his mouth to move right. So,
That doesn't happen very often.
but if you look at Code Section 71-102 in the Georgia Masonic Code, it will help you with that. Now, of course, Will and I, we sought some counsel out before this session because we wanted to, hey, we should do an episode on what the difference between an edict and a ruling is. And we knew it'd be a short and sweet show tonight, but at the same time, that's pertinent information.
Yeah, because I've seen on social media a lot of brethren say, well, he put out this ruling, or they call the ruling an edict, or they call the edict a ruling. Because I don't think some folks understood the difference, and I didn't fully understand the difference till we got some counsel from a learned brother that put some information together for us. So I even learned quite a bit coming into this, and it helps you when you speak to other brethren to know what the difference is, so that you can help them to understand what's going to happen at the end of the Grand Master's year.
Well,
Now, bear in mind, we have 21 items.
right,
I think that 21 or 22 we have to follow to open our Blue Lodges back up here in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, brethren, currently they're set through the end of the Grand Master's term.
Correct.
But there's nothing that says that if things go well, that he can't start pulling those back.
And he can also,
It's his discretion, not mine.
and it would come out as another ruling, which would be number 7 at this time. I guess what is so frustrating, and I know that guys who are on here tonight are a lot of Masonic leaders that we know. It's the most frustrating part is it's just like I was taught when I was in college. You're only reading every third or fourth word, so you're really not paying attention to the sentence. When things are written Masonically, you've got to read the entire context of what is being presented. If you don't do that, then it becomes confusing, just like the Masonic Code, because it may have a period or a comma or a semicolon or all these other things that'll be in there that changes the meaning of a phrase or a sentence. And then we're in a situation of brethren putting out misinformation into their lodges. You and I both are on several lodges, private groups, and we're on their, email chains and text message chains. Some of the information that's come out was not exactly like what was said by the Grand Master. So it creates a state of confusion.
It does.
You know, if the Grand Master says that it's going to be this way, don't counter that by doing something different. And that's what I've seen done. And it worries me because now we got to go back in these lodges and people don't really know what to do.
Well, and that's people reading through stuff fast and then trying to paraphrase it, so if they paraphrase it, someone will understand it better. A lot of times it's good if just to put the information out there. If you want to put the information out to your brethren about the rulings and the edict, just send them copies. Let them interpret. Now, if they have a question, say, hey, if you have a question about something, call so and so. Put a Learned Brothers number on there. Let them know you're going to do it. Call me or Wiley. We can help you with it, because the words make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
And then the words that you use to put it back out there could cause misinformation, dissension, just cause all kinds of heartache. And I think that I've seen that happen. And I know I've gone back, I know Wiley's gone back to several brethren and said, no, you don't have to wear, in particular, you don't have to wear a mask. It's not required, it's recommended.
And that's the misnomer that happens all the time. You reading every third word in a sentence, and some of you are sitting there laughing, but it's the truth. Because your brain is formulated that way. That's the way you're wired. Because you're wired to get to the end of the sentence.
Well, and a lot of us have, I know you do, and I know I do. I know a lot of the people, a lot of the brethren watching tonight, we have a lot of emails come in. We have a lot of stuff to go through. So we're used to skimming. It's fine. Skim it for yourself. But before you send it out, go back and take time to read it. Read it out loud.
Correct.
Even if you're the only one in the room, because it will make you understand it better. Because if you send out misinformation, then you're on the hook to try to correct it, which is no fun.
So, we talked about at the beginning. So now, why was the edict put out in the first place in relation to the coronavirus?
I humbly believe that two things. One, the CDC rulings that are still in effect, and Governor Kemp's orders in the state of Georgia.
But more in depth than that, as it pertains to Masonic law, we needed to enact Masonic law to put something in place because something didn't exist to begin with.
But I'm just saying the reason. Yes, we needed to. There were a couple of whys. Why we needed the rulings out there and the edict out there, so brethren had something to follow.
But the edict in itself was established recently, June 5th, for the enactment of Masonic law purely based on the fact that there was no precedent in the Masonic code or anything relevant that matched it in the code. Right. So we needed to establish it to establish the authority of the Grand Master during a time of crisis. Right. Either it be a national emergency, state emergency, a health emergency, act of war, things like that, to give the Grand Master the authority to be able to
set the guidelines.
Yeah, put out some rules for us, because we're flying blind. And that's the hard part for brethren to understand, is they think that they know it all, and they don't. And unfortunately, pride gets in our way, and we'll put out misinformation, and it's not the truth, or it's not the real. There's a difference, a little bit of difference in that, but still, there you're right, Brother Moore. It says
Grand Master shall not.
It shall wear. That is for I think that is when there's one person in particular that will do that, and I believe that's the secretary when he has to collect ballots that were the way we were told to collect ballots. That was the one person.
I don't have them in front of me right now to actually read them.
But that was the one person who was supposed to be able to do that.
Pulling them up now. I know he's right. I just don't remember what the exact statement was.
But it was purely based on the secretary and his job duties. So, but anyway, we just want to make sure that everybody understands the difference between the two.
Yeah. Secretary shall use caution in protecting his health and well-being by using gloves and wearing a mask.
So we want to take care of the secretary,
Yeah, because it doesn't run without him there.
correct. So we know how to, we've learned how to, the other premises that we have to have. And that leads me to this point. I've heard so many comments with brethren talking about, well, oh, we're going to lose membership. We're going to do this. Brethren, if all you go to lodge for is for degree work, conferring degrees, and no other purpose, you got it wrong.
Well, I got to tell you what our worship master did, because I think this is fantastic. Our worship master thought outside the box, and I told you about this, and I want to tell the audience because this was fantastic in my opinion. So we can't cook at our lodges right now. If you do, well, you can. You can't prepare anything at the lodge.
Can't prepare any food.
It's got to be brought in, but it has to be brought in individually wrapped, this and that. Our master told our brother in our lodge, stop by Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or something like that, pick you up a meal, bring it to the lodge, and we'll just set and eat it. It's wrapped, it's in a bag, it's just for us.
Individually.
That, to me, that's thinking outside the box. So I thought that was really cool. I'm looking forward, I know that right now we can't have any degree work, there's certain things we can't do. But you know what the big can that I like is?
We can meet.
I can see my brethren.
Yeah, and that's the thing that loses it for me in some of the comments that I'm seeing so far.
I get to see my brethren.
If a man wants to become a member of our lodges and still will petition, you can get the investigating committee together and do your thing for that. But what we can't do is the rest of it that goes with it. But the reason why is if you sit there and you talk to that person, if you happen to be that, and you say, due to what's going on in the country, and right now with this coronavirus thing, we're not allowed to conduct any of our ritual. This is hopefully our time frame.
Right.
And, it'll be later in the year. It could be possibly early next year. If that person still has an interest 5 months from now, 6 months from now, think about what a good member it is because they want it. Now, sometimes we just bring them in and whatever. Now they want it. So understand that the things that we have going on right now that Grandmaster Garmin has issued for us in this state are temporary. It's a temporary thing, but to be able to allow us to go back and meet in our buildings and be with our brethren, that's good enough for me.
Right now, that's great. But now I don't have to say.
But what is not good enough for me, Will,
spill it,
is the fact that if you walk in that lodge and you're spewing negativity instead of positivity based on the situation we got. I hadn't seen you in 3 months. The first thing I don't want to see is some grumpy old guy. Hey brother, how you doing? I'm glad to see you. So think about that as we're seeing more and more of these brethren and putting their comments. You saw in our opening we talked about quit airing your dirty laundry out there. I really think that it is extremely wrong of anybody, not just a Mason, anybody, to get in a back and forth contest on a social media site. Arguing with someone is not going to make the problem or your disagreement go away. And it goes into some of these quotes we got for tonight that I think are relevant with the way brethren are acting in reaction to the Grand Master's edict and his rulings.
Yeah, because we could still be like some of these states. We could not be. There's some states, and I know there's some territories up in Canada that aren't going to meet until August or September.
At the earliest.
Think about that. We're going to get to see our brethren face to face. Be it 6 feet apart, you still get to see them face to face. You have a meeting. That's going to be fantastic. And me, if I would have been in this situation and just coming in as a candidate and they told me that I had to wait, I wanted masonry so much when I came into it. Fine, I'll wait.
But as a candidate, you're gonna think, God, they respect my health. That's not the only. I mean, they respect that too. They don't want to put themselves or myself into a position. Right. We don't. There's so much unknown about this virus thing. We have our. If we were good conspiracy theorists, we'd have some good ones. If we were just in the medical side, we'd have some theories with that as well. So, there's so much unknown.
Right.
And it's just a breeding ground for negativity. We've been shut out of the one thing that we love more than anything, besides our families.
We've been shut out, and we've been shut in.
And we've been shut in the house. So, with that said, there's so much frustration built up, but it's built up for all of us. We're all if we love something, we're all in the same position right now.
Now, bear in mind that the Grandmaster did recommend that people don't go visiting a lot of other lodges.
Correct.
Because we're going to have limited space in some of our lodges as it is. That's not saying you can't. Just don't take 20 people with you. Don't everybody. Okay, so Auburn Lodge meets this Saturday night. Everybody and their brother's going to be wanting to go to Auburn Lodge. Well, they only have room for so many people. And what was cool that they did at their lodge, I saw a picture of this. They've actually pulled out the chairs from their lodge. They can only have 30 brethren on the floor or on the sidelines, and each one of their chairs are already 6 feet apart. So they pulled out all their extra chairs and spaced everything already. Fantastic idea. And
it's going to be hard to do in some situations. You could do it at your place, but I couldn't do it at mine.
Right. Because
my chairs are fixed and they're fixed to the thing. But brethren, the Grandmaster issued this ruling to hopefully enact some common sense in our members. I know that's a hard word.
Just like when we started doing these 3 months ago, this too in time shall pass.
Oh, absolutely.
So abide your time in patience and govern yourselves accordingly.
So the moral of the story for tonight about the difference between an edict and a ruling, the edict is established to enact Masonic law. Period. In a nutshell, with a ruling is temporary. A ruling ends at the end of the term of the Grand Master. The Grand Master can go back and adjust his ruling at any time. It is his prerogative. Understand, to all of you who are out there watching, the Grand Master is constantly thinking about, where should we be? Where do we go? How soon do we do this? He put some parameters out there for us to go back. Now he can make the adjustments or add to. It depends on.
Still an adjustment.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment. Don't add to. We don't want any more add-ons. But we don't want any add-ons back over there. But what I'm saying is we set the edict in order to enact the law, to get it before the Grand Lodge floor, because this has never happened before, and it needs to be added to our Masonic law.
Well, and it's like we've talked about before in other episodes. We've got to have something in our code that if this ever happens again or something of this nature, we're able to work around it, not try to get around it, but be able to work with it and around it, and be able to do stuff from our homes that normally we wouldn't be able to do.
And be able to establish procedures for us, especially the Grand Master, who has to be able to govern the craft, even if we're not meeting.
Yeah.
So, but understand the rulings. The goal. I don't like to use that term "go away," but they do. They end at the term of the Grand Master, the current term.
The rulings' goals.
Yes.
Are to enact something during the Grand Master's year.
Correct.
Now, I want to remind before this leaves my brain, because the train gets derailed easy. Both that happens to both of us. Thursday will be our last live cast for a little while. This coming Thursday. What you're going to see next Tuesday and next Thursday, if we can get everything together, we're going to still try to put out things twice a week, but they're going to be recorded.
And we may even go down to once a week. We don't know yet.
We got to see how that flows out. The episodes that we put together for consumption that we just throw out there are going to be short and sweet. We're going to keep them My plan is to keep them down to 10 to 15 minutes unless there's something that requires more time than that. So they won't be these 30, 45 hour long sessions like we've done in the live cast. Live cast is a little better for this because we do have some audience interaction and stuff, but when we put these things out later, they're going to be short little things, short little snippets that you don't have to look at us for half an hour or 45 minutes. So, brethren, we don't want to belabor this too much. Just bear in mind what you put out there that we talked about on our last episode. Be careful what you put out there in social media, whether it be a private group or a public group. Try not to air your laundry. So, where's Brother Wiley, our first quote for the night?
This is from Shannon L. Alder. Being different is a revolving door in your life, where secure people enter and insecure people exit.
That's good. It's true.
Now, our president had a better one.
Yeah, John F. Kennedy said, one person can make a difference, and everyone should try.
That's right, should. It should say must. And the last one by Vincent O'Sullivan said what?
If you are different from the rest of the flock, they will bite you.
Fat. So remember, it's hard to keep an open mind. It's hard to stay patient. Understand that these problems are temporary. The ability to be able to go and see our brethren, something we haven't been able to do in almost 90 days. We need to consider the gratefulness of being able to still be able to call ourselves free and accepted Masons.
And I know it's hard to. I know I catch myself in it. I know Worship Brother Wiley catches himself in it. Worship Brother Forrester catches himself in it sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. We do
it
often.
Gotta get that mindset again. Look at the positive. Try to find that silver lining in the black cloud. We may not get to go back and do everything we wanted to do, but we do get to go back. And please keep that in mind.
There's a lot of Masons not able to go back.
Well, and also, brethren, I want to thank our audience for being with us for the last few months, and I want to thank the craft as a whole, because as a whole, the craft in Georgia and the craft from other states that we've talked to and seen and seen what they've put out there, everyone has been very patient and temperate.
That's right.
As a whole. I know we point out sometimes those folks who get a little out of line, but as we all know, we just want to give everyone a little nudge once in a while.
And I'm pretty sure that next week or so, probably week after next, we'll put out an episode of my first experience back. It's like, we really want people to understand what we were feeling and what we saw firsthand. Thank you, Worship Brother Mark. That's a good quote from Winston Churchill. And I wanted to back up before we sign off tonight.
Okay.
And go back to the secretary and the senior deacon. The senior deacon should wear gloves and stuff when handling the 3 great lights and the working tools there. He needs to make sure that the gloves are on his hands. Should, but in that case, most of you probably will. We know that we need to make sure we take care of our secretaries. They're probably under a lot of stress right now. A lot of brethren don't understand this conversation we just had tonight. They do not understand the difference between an edict and a ruling. My suggestion to you before we sign off is, for you Masonic leaders, y'all should probably in your own lodges explain what the difference is. I know we don't want to do long education and this and that and the other. I have my things about the Grand Master's ruling too that I don't necessarily like. And the one
Just
thing,
because you don't like him,
but I still gonna follow it because
There you
he's
go.
the boss. But the one thing for me is now is the perfect time when we're not doing degree work and we're not performing all of our ritualistic stuff and we're trying to shorten our meetings as possible. It's still time to educate these brethren. And we miss out on that fact. We should be educating these brethren.
Yeah.
And this is some of the negativity and some of the comments that you and I see on social media that really get under our skin is because our lodges fail to educate our brethren. We are at fault. All of us.
Yeah.
In your own individual lodge.
I have a homework assignment for our audience. I have a homework assignment for you, and I want to see most, if not all of you. If you notice down the bottom of the frame there, you'll see our email address. I would like for each one of you that's on this tonight, send me a picture of the Brethren in Lodge the first night you go to Lodge. And we will include those pictures, if you allow us to, in a future upcoming episode where we talk about going back to Lodge. So please, it's masonicfollowme@gmail.com. Send me 1, 2, 20, 100. Send me pictures of going back to Lodge. It's kind of like Brother Lamore has been putting on Facebook of all these lodges he's gotten pictures of and showing the lodges are still intact. I want to see what the inside looks like when we get to go back. So I just humbly request that you all do that for us. And on that,
yep. Thank you again for spending your time with us. Be sure to pass this on. Still continue to hit the like button, the subscribe button. Send it out, share it with all your friends. We're not going to quit doing this show just because we get to go back.
But if someone has a question about an edict versus a ruling or anything, point them to this episode, because you won't have to explain it. We'll do it for you.
And we love all of you.
Absolutely.
And thank you for your time and your patience being with us, because sometimes we get, we'll have a squirrel moment. We have to go, oh, squirrel. But remember this, love each other. You got to love on them. You got to love on them. And if it's to be, it's up to me.
Be excellent to each other.
See you next time.
Good night, all.